harmonics. When I mean harmonics, it is a frequency study. Frequency is nothing but 1 by time. So there are harmonics in different orders. But what happens with all of those harmonics? You can see the harmonic couple 0.5. What is happening is there are harmonics in 4 directions, and when all of them are equal, they're all negated. So there is no harmonic there. Let's consider the case of an ideal engine. In an ideal engine, if everything is working perfectly, then all the amplitudes in all the directions are negated, and then there is no harmonic that is actually present there. When you go to harmonic couple of order 1, okay, they're again negated. 1.5 again negated. But there you see harmonic couple of order 2, because all of them are in the same direction, there is a major gas harmonic that is produced in the direction. Do OEMs know this? Yes. They know that there is a major gas harmonic, and it could be 2, 4, 3, 6, dependent on the configuration of the engine, which is the number of cylinders. So there is a resultant force, which is a harmonic, which is the vibration, which is nothing but the torsional vibration, which is then going to attack other components of the engine. What do OEMs do for this? They design a damper in order to damp this particular harmonic of the order 2. Okay, now in an ideal condition with damper in active mode and the gas harmonic 2 being damped, we have no problems. Unless there are harmonics in 0.5, 1, 1.5. If all the harmonics of 0.5, 1 and 1.5 are negated, they're not present because an engine is in ideal condition, and only there is a gas major harmonic which is damped by the damper and the bearing, there are no harmonics, engine is working perfectly. But will that always be the case? No. There are harmonics of 0.5, 1, 1.5 when there are defects in the engine. Can the existing damper dampen that? No. The damper is designed to dampen the gas harmonic which is order 2, and it cannot dampen 0.5, 1 and 1.5, which is why these harmonics continue to travel through the engine into the alternator or into the gearbox or into the propeller. So these harmonics cannot be addressed by the bearings or the dampers. So these harmonics will transfer to the flywheel, and that is where we are coming in. We are able to identify these harmonics from the flywheel. You can see our installation, basic installation. This is an engine, auxiliary engine, then coupled onto an alternator. We are mounting one simple RPM sensor. There's no great technology into this RPM sensor. It's an RPM sensor that all of you have on your car, on your bikes. This is a simple RPM sensor, which is magnetic pickup type. And you install one sensor on the flywheel to get the teeth data. And then you install one more sensor to identify the TDC. It can be on the camshaft, it can be on the damper, it can be anywhere from where you can get a TDC signal. And this sensor, sensor number 2, is only useful to identify and pinpoint which cylinder has the problem. This sensor number 1 is the sensor that is used to give everything that we are talking about. So I want to repeat again, sensor number 1 is the only one sensor, a simple RPM sensor which is used to derive everything that I'm going to show now. Sensor number 2 is just an identification sensor because we want to pinpoint the cylinders. So this is the basic installation. You can retrofit on any engine. Most of the engines have a spare sensor, redundant sensor, from which we can tap the signal. It's a simple installation. You just need to pick the census data and put it into the box. That's all. So now, when we install one MPU onto the gear wheel, which is the flywheel, then you take it into an intelligent controller, which is, when I mean intelligent, it does the analysis, it throws the report in real time. This product is specially designed for the marine environment because we know the problems with respect to internet. So everything needs to be real time, everything needs to be offline, everything needs to be inside the ship. So all of the data that goes, the signal that goes into the VBox, which is the vibration analysis box, is analyzed then and there. There's nothing that gets transferred onto cloud or anywhere else or any human being's intervention required. And then the data is then transferred onto one screen that you can see there. And the real-time indicators are present. We'll go there into the detailed view of the indicators and what they are and how are we able to show. So this is how the sensor that is put on the flywheel gets activated two sensors as I mentioned you, MPU and TDC. And then this is the theory. So based on the configuration of the engine, there's already base signal that is being generated by the software. And then we are sending in the sensor's measured signal. Then there is a difference that is being derived. And then using that derivation, we are able to, we're then sending the signal into two modules. One is the frequency module, one is the time signal module. Frequency module is used to identify a particular defect. Every defect by its nature produces a particular signal with a particular characteristic with a particular frequency. We do a frequency analysis in order to identify that particular frequency and denote that problem to that engine. And then what about the time signal? We want to quantify the defect because unless quantified, how serious is the problem is something unknown. So we want to identify, quantify the problem there. So for the quantification, we send the data into the time domain. For the identification, we send it into the frequency domain. You can see here, there is a major harmonic which indicates the mounts problem there. So depending on where the major harmonics comes in the number of orders, we're able to identify that particular problem. And then using all of this, we're able to give something that is very easy to understand, because finally a product is required to be very easy. It needs to be understandable. You can see what the product gives like. It gives the mechanical health. It gives the overall operating condition of the engine, how efficient is the engine utilizing the fuel that is being given to it, and then the overall mechanical stresses, the amount of stresses that are present on the crankshaft basically, or the overall engine that is stressed to that level, and then the mount separately. So the internal components of the engine and the external component of the engine are separated. So the vibrations on the external components of the engine are specifically denoted in the mounts. And you can see the torsional angle and power loss, which exactly tells you how much power is lost to vibrations, which is your fuel, which you can directly calculate the loss of money that your company is making. And then it talks about the damper, which no other system today can do. No other system today is available to identify the health of the damper. We can tell you what is the health of the damper and when you will have to overhaul it. So I'll try to explain this concept pretty simply. There's one rotation. Now it should, let's say, take X amount of energy to move to that rotation. The moment you're spilling out fuel, the moment there's a problem in the valves, the moment the O-ring is improper, the moment the liner is improper, your shaft, instead of just moving like this, starts moving like this. So there is extra amount of energy that is being spent for the same rotation, and that is the fuel loss, which is what we're able to identify from the RPM sensor, and that's why I call speed as a revolutionary data. And that data is then able to calculate and give us the fuel efficiency of the overall engine, as well as it is able to tell us which cylinder specifically or which injector is spilling out, because of which the fuel efficiency is reducing, so that you can go attack that, solve that problem, and then increase the fuel efficiency again. So we are able to identify rotation by rotation, and depending on the path of the shaft, we're then able to deduce and say where the problem is. So this is a power card which you must have all seen. Using a peak pressure sensor, we must be able to take this power card, and you all know the importance of this power card. Power card is the most important tool in the hands of a diesel engine or a gas engine operator. But is peak pressure sensor really required to obtain the power cards? No. An RPM sensor, a speed signal, will be able to give a power card like this, using which you will be able to revolutionize the way you're looking at an engine. You don't need expensive peak pressure sensors, which needs calibration with time, which only has a life of 10,000 hours, which are very costly as 1.5 lakh rupees in Indian currency, and then you need a module to be able to look at the data. None of them are required. You only need a simple RPM sensor, which is as cheap as 10,000 rupees to get into this, which is what we're calling as a revolution. Trend monitoring. So there's a fine difference between performance monitoring and condition monitoring. When we're calling performance monitoring, you take a reading, you understand the reading, and then you deduce, okay, you want to do what you want to do. But condition monitoring is identifying the condition based on that particular load, condition of the sea, how is the operation going on, what is the number of running hours. So you need to monitor a trend in order to identify how the changes are going to be. you can see how the mechanical health of an engine is slowly going down, going down, going down. And the ship owner can use this data in order to identify when he needs to plan an overhaul based on the residual life. And then you can closely look at the operating condition and the injection condition. You can see that there is a dip in the operating condition, which is majorly because of the injection condition of a particular cylinder. If that injection condition is addressed, which means the operating condition will improve and your fuel efficiency will improve. And we have seen with our experience that there is a net 4% fuel savings using this particular system by being able to correct the injectors. And this is what you get from the system. You're able to see compression, injection condition, injection timing, and bearing of individual cylinders, every particular cylinder. You can see here that you have a problem with the injection condition and timing of cylinder number 3. You go there, look at what the problem is in the injector, correct it, you increase the fuel efficiency, reduce the amount of cost to the company, and also reduce the emissions. So, using the same technology, we can identify the torque of a shaft. Let's simply take the torque equation. Torque equation can be divided into something like this. Torque is equals to material constant into twist angle. What does the strain gauge that are used these days by the MEMS do? So strain gauge tries to identify the strain, then starts converting it into twist, and then puts the twist into the equation of the torque. So by identifying the strain and then converting it into twist, putting the twist into the equation, we're able to get the torque. What are we wanting to do with this revolutionary speed data? We just want to, with the speed sensor, with 2 speed sensors put on the shaft, one as the reference, another one measuring the twist, we'll be able to know the twist directly. So by being able to get the twist directly and putting it directly into the torque equation, we're doing the same thing what a strain gauge can do in a better way, because this is non-invasive. It is not attached to the fixed to the shaft. So there's no gluing problem that you often hear from the OEM. There's no problem of the sensitivity. There's no problem of calibration because this is non-invasive. You can see that the sensors are not touching the shaft at all. So the life is very high. And so the sensitivity, there's no problem of sensitivity. There's no problem of calibration. And you get the data uninterrupted. And we're using the same equation, same accuracy in order to attain torque values. So this is what you see from the screen. You'll be able to look at the torsion. You'll be able to look at the torque and power, which is just derived by a formula from the torque. And then you will have a complete understanding of how much is being generated from the engine. Is it actually being transferred onto the propeller or not? And that will help you understand where the problem could be. Could the problem be with the shaft bearings, or could the problem be with the torsion of the shaft? So looking at all of this, I want to summarize what are the benefits of using this technology. What are the benefits of using speed as a revolutionary data to identify the health of an engine? You can save considerably with the fuel, because you can identify and pinpoint the injectors and then correct it and make sure your engine is always running at an optimum health. When you're running all of your injectors at optimum health, you're obviously using the best. So your fuel efficiency is very good, which means you're saving considerably in the fuel consumption, and then you're able to pinpoint the faults, not just say the vibration is high, you're pinpointing the cylinder level problems, and then you're able to do minor routines. Rather than going for a major or a top overall, you're able to do minor routines in order to correct them. Let me give you a small example. Let's say an O-ring is gone, and then the problem goes on to liner, and then an increased friction, and then that gets transferred onto the piston, and that gets transferred onto the con rod bearings, and then gets transferred onto the crank. So all of this, with one small problem, the problem can escalate to continue to move on to the different parts of the engine. So by being able to identify in which particular cylinder the problem is there, we'll be able to tackle that problem there and reduce the friction in the system as well as the problems in the system. So we'll be able to extend the overalls safely, and we got an IRS class approval certificate for this in order to move from PMS to CMS. And we'll be able to eliminate the catastrophic failures, and we'll be able to reduce the operational and downtime costs, and we'll be able to get the ROI of the system in less than 6 months, and we have currently built a business model to get the ROI in less than 1 month. So this is what we are all doing with the speed data. Thank you.
I think, thank you, Narendra. That is a wonderful presentation. Would you like to take questions now? Because
Yes, sir. I'd like to take
I think you have taken about 21 minutes of your allotted 15 minutes.
Okay.
So I think we can take about maybe 2 questions, I suppose.
Okay. Any questions from anybody, please? Yes, sir. It is the variation of the speed between two teeth.
Okay.
And that contains information about frequency and time. We basically take the data that will give us the time domain, which means the time that is taken
To surpass two
one
consecutive teeth,
teeth.
that is the one which you take. Okay,
Yes.
understood. So then each machine has gotten a different, unique way of behavior.
Correct.
I don't think it is uniform. Suppose, say, one particular model you take, I don't think that it is similar in all patterns. So, means you mean to say that you study data for a while and then you compare that.
We configure it, sir. So when we go for the commissioning, we configure the number of cylinders, number of teeth, and what is the overall configuration of the engine, and then the module gets ready to analyze it instantly. So there's no need of training the data.
So you mean behavior you get from the OEMs?
No, we don't get from the OEM, sir. We get from the configuration. We only need the cylinder data, how many cylinders, what is the firing order, what is the number of teeth on the flywheel, what is the megawatt of the engine, power of the engine, that's all.
Okay. So you are measuring the deviation from the standard. Am I right?
Correct, sir.
Okay. So you have a standard